Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where your sweetheart is. God bless you. This is Gloria White, coming to you from Utah, USA. Today we're going to be continuing in 2 Kings in the New Jerusalem Holy Bible, and we are in chapter 23, verse 24. Final comments on the religious reform. What is more, the spirit guides and mediums, the household gods and idols, and all the abominations to be seen in the country of Judah and in Jerusalem were swept away by Joshua to give effect to the words of the law written in the book found by the priest Hilkiah in the temple of Yahweh. No king before him turned to Yahweh as he did, with all his heart, all his soul, all his strength, in perfect loyalty to the law of Moses. Nor did any king like him arise again. Yet Yahweh did not renounce the heat of his great anger, which had been aroused against Judah by all the provocations which Manasseh had caused him. Yahweh said, I shall thrust Judah away from me too, as I have already thrust Israel. I shall cast off Jerusalem, this city which I have chosen, and the temple of which I have said, my name shall be there. The end of the reign of Josiah. The rest of the history of Josiah, his entire career, is this not recorded in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? In his times, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, was advancing to meet the king of Assyria at the river Euphrates, and King Joshua went to intercept him. But Necho killed him at Megiddo in the first encounter. His retainers carried his body from Megiddo by chariot. They brought him to Jerusalem and buried him in his own tomb. The people of the country then took Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, and anointed him, proclaiming him king in succession to his father. Section D. The destruction of Jerusalem. The reign of Jehoahaz in Judah, 609. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he came to the throne, and he reigned for 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. He did what is displeasing to Yahweh, just as his ancestors had done. Pharaoh Necho put him in chains at Riblah in Hamath to prevent his reigning any longer in Jerusalem, and imposed a levy of 100 talents of silver and 10 talents of gold on the country. Pharaoh Necho then made Eliakim, son of Josiah, king in succession to Josiah his father, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. Carrying off Jehoahaz, he took him to Egypt, where he died. Jehoiakim paid over the silver and gold to Pharaoh, but first had to tax the people of the country before he could raise the sum which Pharaoh demanded. He levied the silver and gold to be paid over to Pharaoh Necho from each according to his means. The reign of Jehoiakim in Judah, 609 to 598. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he came to the throne, and he reigned for 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zebedah, daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. He did what is displeasing to Yahweh, just as his ancestors had done. Chapter 24. In his time, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded, and Jehoiakim became his vassal for 3 years, but then rebelled against him a second time. So he sent armed bands of Chaldeans, Armenians, Moabites, and Ammonites against him. He sent these against Judah to destroy it, in accordance with the word which Yahweh had spoken through his servants the prophets. It was entirely due to Yahweh's anger that this happened to Judah. He had resolved to thrust them away from him because of Manasseh's sins and all that he had done, and also because of the innocent blood which he had shed, flooding Jerusalem with innocent blood. Yahweh would not forgive. The rest of the history of Jehoiakim, his entire career, is this not recorded in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? Then Jehoiakim fell asleep with his ancestors. His son Jehoiachin succeeded him. The king of Egypt did not leave his own country again, because the king of Babylon had conquered everywhere belonging to the king of Egypt, from the torrent of Egypt to the river Euphrates. Introduction to the reign of Jehoiachin, 598 to 597. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he came to the throne, and he reigned for 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Nehushta, daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. He did what is displeasing to Yahweh, just as his father had done. The first deportation. At that time, the troops of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, advanced on Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, advanced on the city, and his generals laid siege to it. Jehoiachin, king of Judah, he, his mother, his retinue, his nobles, and his officials, then surrendered to the king of Babylon. And the king of Babylon took them prisoner in the 8th year of his reign. The latter carried off all the treasures of the temple of Yahweh, and the treasures of the palace, and broke up all the golden furnishings which Solomon, king of Israel, had made for the sanctuary of Yahweh, as Yahweh had foretold. He carried all Jerusalem off in exile, all the nobles and all the notables. 10,000 of these were exiled, with all the blacksmiths and metal workers. Only the poorest people in the country were left behind. He deported Jehoiachin to Babylon, as also the king's mother, his officials, and the nobility of the country. He made them all leave Jerusalem for exile in Babylon. All the men of distinction, 7,000 of them, the blacksmiths and metal workers, 1,000 of them, all the men capable of bearing arms, were led off into exile in Babylon by the king of Babylon. The king of Babylon deposed Jehoiachin in favor of his paternal uncle, Mattaniah, whose name he changed to Zedekiah. Introduction to the reign of Zedekiah in Judah, 598 to 587. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he came to the throne, and he reigned for 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. He did what is displeasing to Yahweh, just as Jehoiakim had done. It was entirely due to Yahweh's anger that this happened to Jerusalem and Judah. It resulted in his casting them from his presence. Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. The siege of Jerusalem, chapter 25. In the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, on the 10th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, advanced on Jerusalem with his entire army. He pitched camp in front of the city and threw up earthworks round it. The city lay under siege until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. in the 4th month, on the 9th day of the month, when famine was raging in the city and there was no food for the populace, a breach was made in the city wall. The king then made his escape under cover of dark, with all the fighting men, by way of the gate between the two walls, which is near the king's garden. The Chaldeans had surrounded the city, and made his way towards the Arabia. The Chaldean troops pursued the king and caught up with him in the plains of Jericho, where all his troops deserted. The Chaldeans captured the king and took him to the king of Babylon at Riblah, who passed sentence on him. He had Zedekiah's sons slaughtered before his eyes, then put out Zedekiah's eyes, and loading him with chains, carried him off to Babylon. The sack of Jerusalem, the second deportation. In the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, it was in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, a member of the king of Babylon's staff, entered Jerusalem. He burned down the temple of Yahweh, the royal palace, and all the houses in Jerusalem. The Chaldean troops who accompanied the commander of the guard demolished the walls surrounding Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, deported the remainder of the population left in the city, the deserters who had gone over to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the common people. But the commander of the guard left some of the poor country people behind as vineyard workers and plowmen. The Chaldeans broke up the bronze pillars of the temple of Yahweh, the wheeled stands and the bronze sea, which were in the temple of Yahweh, and took the bronze away to Babylon. They also took the ash containers, the scoops, the knives, the incense boats, and all the bronze furnishing used in worship. The commander of the guard also took the censers and the sprinkling bowls, everything made of gold and everything made of silver. As regards the 2 pillars, the one sea and wheeled stands, which Solomon had made for the temple of Yahweh, there was no reckoning the weight of bronze in all these objects. The height of one pillar stood 18 cubits, and on it stood a capital of bronze, the height of the capital being 5 cubits. Round the capital were filigree and pomegranates, all in bronze, so also for the 2nd pillar. The commander of the guard took prisoner Seraiah, the chief priest, Zephaniah, the priest next in rank, and the 3 guardians of the threshold. In the city he took prisoner an official who was in command of the fighting men, 5 of the king's personal friends who were discovered in the city, the secretary to the army commander, and 60 men of distinction discovered in the city. Nebuzaradan, commander of the guard, took these men and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. And at Riblah, in the territory of Hamath, the king of Babylon had put them to death. Thus Judah was deported from its country. Okay. Gedaliah, governor of Judah. For the people remaining in the country of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had left behind, he appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, as governor. When the military leaders and their men all heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah as governor, they went to him at Mizpah. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Johanna, son of Kareah, Shiriah, son of Tanhumeth, the Netophathite, Jaazaniah, the Maccathite, they and their men. To them and to their men Gedaliah swore an oath. Do not be afraid of the Chaldeans, he said. Stay in the country, serve the king of Babylon, and all will go well with you. But in the 7th month, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, son of Elishama, who was of royal descent, and 10 men with him, came and murdered Gedaliah, as well as the Judeans and Chaldeans who were with him in Mizpah. Then all the people, high and low, with the military leaders, set off and went to Egypt, being afraid of the Chaldeans. King Jehoiachin pardoned. Okay, I know I'm over, but this is the last section here and the end of 2 Kings. King Jehoiachin pardoned. In the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiachin, king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 27th day of the month, evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the year he came to the throne, pardoned Jehoiachin, king of Judah, and released him from prison. He treated him with kindness and allotted him a seat above those of the other kings who were with him in Babylon. So Jehoiachin laid aside his prisoner's garb. For the rest of his life always ate at the king's table, and his upkeep was permanently ensured by the king day after day for the rest of his life. And that's the end of 2 Kings. Amazing. This king was pleasing to Yahweh. This king is displeasing to Yahweh. It's the same thing throughout all of history. It just keeps repeating itself. And it's the same thing with the people of Israel. I mean, they're a perfect example of exactly what has happened here in America. God made us a mighty country and put everything that we needed in our hands. This is truly a land of milk and honey. And yet and still, we see our country turning further and further away from God. Our leaders are absolutely godless. Well, they're not totally godless. They do worship someone. It's just not Almighty God in heaven. And Lord, have mercy on us, because what they intend, they're moving ahead with rather quickly. So stay close to God. Keep your slate clean. And as always, thanks for being with me. I love you.